save that question. Write it. You need a card to write that on. I think Tira's going to cover that in her presentation. So instead of me jumping out in front of her on that, there you go. And I'll just mention this too. You should have a card and a pen. What we'd like to do is take all the questions at the end of the presentation and just kind of roll through it. So I don't need to tell the live stream people that. So if you would just jot your questions down, Scott Anchors is going to collect them as we wrap up our session. Who's a good prayer person here? Michelle. Would you come up and let's go ahead and open with prayer, and then we'll wait till Barbara gives us permission to start.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we give thanks to you for all of your blessings and all of your provision for us. We pray, Lord, your continual blessing on this church and on the people guiding our finances, particularly Tira and Deb and those that are closely involved. We thank you, Lord, that you have brought us this far, and we know that you will bring us exactly where we need to be in the future. All glory and praise be to you, Lord. Amen.
Amen. It's 12:31. Are we ready, Barbara? Oh, yay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to our information session on Immanuel's finances. We're glad you made the time for this, and we're going to try to honor your time and go through the presentation. As I mentioned before, if you have questions, write them down on your note cards. If you're online and watching this, please send your questions to iachurch.org, and we will try to get an answer back to you. Thank you, Michelle, for praying for us. I really am grateful to you for that. I'm very happy to introduce Tira Harpster. I think everyone here probably knows Tira from lots of time with Immanuel. She has in-depth historical knowledge of Immanuel's finances. She's been involved with our finances for more than 2 decades, I think. So she's very skilled in helping us manage our finances. As a former chief financial officer in the private sector, she just has a wide range of financial expertise. Lydia can't be here today. Lydia Schnack is our pledge record secretary. She is deeply committed to managing and maintaining the confidentiality of all of your giving to the church. She also has deep expertise in documenting and tracking the gifts that Immanuel receives so we can manage our finances accurately. Today, Tira and I should actually move the slide. The purpose of this session is to provide you with factual information about how we manage the finances of the church and how we work together. We're going to cover a variety of topics that are here on the slide. We're going to talk about the budget, how it's developed and approved. We're going to talk about the different funding streams, the importance of giving to each of those building fund and operating fund, how the vestry can, if there are available resources near the end of the year, spend those resources wisely on end-of-year purchases. And we also want to talk about how we answer your questions. So I'm going to, this is where I turn it over to you, right? Okay. Let me go to the next slide. Thank you, Tira.
Thank you.
I just destroyed all your props.
Oh, well, that's okay. I think you have some underneath your notes, too.
Oh, good.
So thank you for joining us. I think you all are aware that we're in the middle of our stewardship season. And so what that means from a budgeting perspective is we've started actually the Finance Committee started at the end of July trying to put together a budget for the vestry to look at. We did that with a letter going out to all of the stakeholders or the ministry leaders. They were asked to provide financial input or guidance or need for their ministry for 2026. While we were waiting for those numbers to come back, the Finance Committee did some math calculations. We took the financial statements from the end of June of 2025, and we extrapolated the income out to the end of the year, which would give us a picture of what kind of income we would have over the course of this year. We did the same thing with the expenses. We extrapolated the June numbers out to the end of December. And we put all of that into an income statement form, income, and then all the expenses gives us a net income at the end. Then income the ministry leaders' requests for expenses, and we kind of changed the numbers that we had projected and put their numbers in. After we got that done, now we have a format to work with. And so the treasurer, the finance committee chair, and a finance committee member got together, and we scrubbed those numbers, making sure that we'd gotten actually what the ministry leaders had asked for. We did the math correctly, and we were comfortable, if you will, with what we projected for income. And then just to give us extra comfort, we gave it to the whole committee, the whole finance committee, and they did it again. So we have 3 iterations of checks and balances and trying to accommodate everybody's needs. The next thing we do then is deliver that budget to the vestry. Let's see if I can make this. Oh, there you go. They get the budget, and it's their job to review what we've done, go through it line by line, or however they decide to do it, but hopefully they're going through it in that kind of detail. And they can make recommendations back to the finance committee, say, well, we think there should be less money here and more money there, so we need to switch that around. They bring that back to the finance committee, and the finance committee sits down. And the committee is not there to make the final decision. The committee is there to make sure that what they're asking can happen without causing any other financial issues around that. So finance committee blesses it, if you will, and it goes back to the vestry, and then the vestry approves that budget. Once they've approved the budget, now we're set for the next fiscal year, which runs from January to December. This is probably the most important thing that the vestry does, and it takes several meetings to get it done correctly and everybody on the same page, and then get the information back out to the ministry leaders. So it's not an easy task, and it's not one that's taken lightly. To understand what is happening when we're setting up a budget, you probably need to understand a little bit of the components of the budget. This slide shows the operating components only, not building fund. So revenue comes from your pledges. Whatever you pledged, that's the income that we're going to have. Staffing, now we're into expenses. 2 through 5 are expenses. So staffing is things like wages, salaries, retirement, medical bills, mileage, bonuses if there are any, those kind of things. Mission is all of our outreach endeavors. So DOMA, ACTS, CCOM, global missions, Rock the Block, SAMS, those kind of things. Ministry expenses are, think about it like Sunday school. Our Sunday school programs, our adult programs, fellowship is included in that. There's a whole list of them. Those are some examples that'll get you in the right direction. And then we have the facilities expenses. That's the lights, the water, the lawn mowing, and also things like paper, pens, ink, computer software. So those are the categories that we're asking ministry leaders to fill in, and what the vestry and the finance committee are looking at. Now, if we move on to the budget for the building fund, that's a whole different animal because there's not as much going on there. Your pledge comes in, that's the revenue that we're going to use, and the only expense that's recorded in this income statement is the annual mortgage principal, or interest. What I need you to understand, because there's going to be future slides that may be difficult if you don't hear this piece, is the interest goes on the income statement, the principal goes on the balance, but your contribution in whole goes on the income statement. So as we move through some slides, you'll see why that's important. Just remember that only the interest is recorded on the income statement for the building fund. The principal is recorded on the balance sheet. The vestry has to approve this budget as well. It just doesn't take as much time, as you can see. So how do you get involved? What is your play in the whole budgeting process? Well, it's stewardship time, so you should have received a letter and a card. It would have been a letter from Father Travis and a pledge card in the mail. If you didn't get it Friday or Saturday, you probably get it Monday or Tuesday. After you read the letter and understand, Travis goes into some biblical background on stewardship and what it means to tithe and what it means to give. After you've read that, then you should spend some time asking God for guidance. Where does He want you to give? How does He want you to give? And once you're comfortable with all of that, then you fill out your card, and on October 26th, you turn it in. It's called In Gathering Sunday, and we'll have a basket, and everybody brings their pledges. It goes to the altar. So it kind of cements your giving in a spiritual, godly way instead of your mindset of, I'm just writing a check. It gives meaning to what you're doing. I put this slide in here just so you can get a picture of the two different ways, or the two different funds that we can give to. The yellow envelope is a picture of what we used last year, and you can see that there's two categories. There's a building fund and there's an operating fund. Again, the building fund supports the mortgage principal and interest and any capital expenditures that we might have, like if we needed a new roof or if we needed a new HVAC system. The operating fund supports the day-to-day operations of the church. That's the difference. That's one way to give right there. So how do you give your gift? Now you've promised your gift, you've committed to a gift, how do you give it? Well, remember that the fiscal year is from January to December, so even though you're going to hand your pledge cards in October, that pledge doesn't start until January. You can use the envelope like I just showed you before. You can ask the pledge records secretary for an envelope, and you can put your offering in there every week, and on the outside of the envelope indicate how you want that money spread into ops or building fund. Or you can use your bank's bill pay. You go into your bank account online and set up a bill pay, and then the bank mails the check every week. If you do that option, just be sure to put where you want your money to go. Do you want it to go to this much to building fund and this much to ops? Do you want it all to go to building fund? Do you want it all to go to ops? And make sure the bank is going to put your name on it so that we can identify it when it gets into our office. The third way you can give is to go online on our website, iachurch.org, and you click on the giving button and it'll drop down and give you options. You can give via credit card, debit card, or ACH. These are efficient uses, and there are a lot of our congregants do use this. If this is your choice, I would ask that you pay the fees that are associated with that, because if you don't pay them, the church has to pay them. So what you've done, if you're giving $10 and there's this is extreme, if $2 fee, the church can only use $8 of that. So just keep that in mind when you're making your decision. Sometimes it's not clear. So let's see how well I've done things here. We'll play a little game, kind of. I'm going to show you invoices, and giving, and you're going to tell me which fund they go into. Ready? Trivia night, kind of. Yeah, we're practicing for trivia night. So here's a giving. Where would that go? Can you read it? It has B for building. So we'll put B, that money goes in there. Right. Those are going to be too easy. So let's try some invoices. If I have an invoice for lawn service, where would it go? Operating. So let's remember that building is only the principal and interest of the mortgage payment or a capital expense like a new roof. Okay? So this is an operating cost, so it's going to go into operating. How about bedding plants? Operating. How about the Novec bill? Electric. Operating. How about the DOMA pledge? Operating. You guys are good. How about this donation? Building. And this one? Ops. See if I can find harder. It doesn't get any harder. How about an irrigation system? It's building. Here's the difference. You can't throw the irrigation system away. It's permanent. It doesn't expire in a year. You can't use it up. So that's why it goes over here. Capital expenditure. How about security cameras? Building. How about laptop computers? Operating. One more. How about the mortgage payment? Building. Good. Okay. So your stars, you all get 100. We can move on to the next slide. Yeah, that too, thanks. The next slides are snapshots of where we are financially through the end of September. So I'm just going to give you a caution as we look at these numbers. This is the end of September. A lot can happen in 3 months. So as we're looking at net income, don't get too excited because it could change drastically. It could actually grow and we could have a lot of money left over, but I want you to just understand how quickly things change. Here we're looking at the operating fund income. As you can see, through September 30th, we've received $379,850.02. And other income is income that is not pledged by you, that's not promised. So it's things like registrations for women's retreat, men's retreat, interest we earn on CDs, donations to Backpack for Kids, donations to Benevolence Fund, the plate offering. It's anything that's not been committed. So year to date, we've received $87,091.32. So total through September is $466,941.34. Here's the expense side of that. So through September, we've had staff expenses, and that's not like, don't divide that by the number of staff and say, wow. It's everything that goes along with that, the health and medical and so on. $212, $596.16. Mission, I'm not going to read the numbers, you can read them. Mission, we've spent $35,000, ministry $45,000, and facility $84,000 for a total expense through the end of September, $378,283.62. This is the income statement, if you will, piece of it. In accounting terms, income minus expenses equals net income. That's what I'm showing you here. So we took the 466 and changed from the first slide, we took the 378 and changed from the second slide, leaving a net income of $88,657.72. But notice that asterisk. And the line below it, we have a debt service covenant ratio attached to our mortgage. And that requires us to have, at the end of the year, 25%, 1.25. So we have to have essentially 25% more income than our debt. In order to do that, at the beginning of every year, I do a calculation that says, here's how much has been pledged, what is 25% of that, and that's how much we can't spend for the year. So we budget accordingly. That's why you're always going to see that $81,000 as a net income, so that we protect the mortgage. Everybody good on that one? Here's the building fund. Same setup, only less items in the expense side as we discussed earlier. So pledges coming in, your pledges, your commitments. So far we've received $178,000 and change. And interest this year is $86,000 and change, leaving a balance, a net income, if you will, of $91,909. But see that asterisk? That asterisk, that $91,000 includes $52,612.84 of principal that has already been paid. So when we pay the mortgage payment every month of $15,420.48, a piece of that goes to the interest, which is on the income statement, and the other piece goes to the balance sheet. So $52,000 has gone to the balance sheet. We can't spend it. It's already been spent. The other $30,000 is we received a gift that was earmarked only to pay down the principal. So we can't spend that money on anything else. So I currently have a message into the bank because we are only allowed to pay 10% of our principal balance down each year without penalties. So I have a message into the bank. I want to pay $30,000 more. What are you going to charge me? To see if it's feasible to, if they're going to charge me $29,000, well, we're not going to do that. So I just need to understand how to make that happen without negating that wonderful gift. So if you add those two numbers together, you'll see that we only have $8,000 or $9,000 of net income there. Again, that net income is not necessarily going to be the same at the end of the year because I already know that some of our pledges have been paid in full, both on ops and building. And so what that means is that $8,000, knowing what I know today, will diminish by the end of December because the people that have paid it won't be paying in October, November, and December. So that'll go down. And the same thing happens on the ops side. Everybody following that? Good? Okay. I think I'm done. So if you have questions about what I've explained, please write them down. When Deb winds up, then I'll come back to the podium and answer your questions.
Thankfully, most of the questions will be for Tira. So I've been on the vestry for a year and a half, and when I started, I have to be truthful and say I knew zip about the financial management of the church. It was a steep learning curve, but Tira was wonderful. She did a training class for us. I took it like 3 times so that I could make sure that I was grasping the information. But I've learned some things that really surprised me about the operating fund and the building fund. So the operating fund is interesting because it is a 1-year fund. Tira has mentioned it starts January 1st and it ends December 31st. Whatever money is remaining in the operating fund on December 31st, on January 1st, we can't use it. It turns into a pumpkin. We have to do other things with that money. And so what we have done, which I'll talk about on the building fund, is we tend to transfer that money over and make sure that we can provide additional pay down on the principal. The 2 vestries I've been on, that's what we have done. So last year we tried a new process. For those of you in the government, and a concern has been legitimately expressed to me about this. For those of you in the government, when you get near the end of the fiscal year, you look to see how much money you have left and you try to find a way to spend it. And sometimes you are wise in how you spend it, and sometimes you are less than wise in how you spend it. So last year, we did a new process where in November, we began to realize we were going to have a very nice amount of money left that we could not spend by the end of the year. And so we developed a process to identify things that the church needed, and then we had a meeting to pray through those things and to prioritize them. So if we had money left over, if we couldn't buy all the things, we could buy whatever the top priority items were. So one of the things that we were able to purchase last year are the kneelers that are here in the church. And, a question's been raised to me about the fact we have kneelers for every chair, and a question about whether that was a wise way to spend money. It's true that not everybody kneels. It's a personal choice. But it's also true that this isn't true for me, but most people move around and sit in different seats every Sunday. And so having the kneelers available is a real important way, because kneeling, that brings people closer to God. And so I'm grateful that we were able to purchase those. We also had a budget item for over $10,000 to refresh all of our computers and laptops and things like that for the church. We were able to buy those last December, which freed up additional money in our 2025 budget, so we didn't have to spend that. We were also able to give to a number of missions. We gave extra money to Life First and ACTS, to some of our missionaries, our cross-cultural workers here in Immanuel. We were able to provide additional funding for them. So I think that the process went well enough. We evaluated it. We are not as confident that we will have extra money for end of year this year. But in the meantime, the vestry met on Monday night. We identified probably 14 or 15 items. We prayed, we voted on them, we've prioritized them. So if we do have additional resources, we're prepared to be wise in how those are spent. So in terms of the transfer of funds, since we kind of look at what we have in November and decide if we're going to do end-of-year spending, December we don't do end-of-year spending. That tends to be a month where traditionally we receive more money than the average month. Primarily, I'm guessing because of the end of the year and people thinking about their IRS and getting squared away for the tax season. So last year, we were able to transfer $144,000 from the operating fund to the building fund. And we asked for the treasurer and the bookkeeper and the finance committee to please pay down principal on the mortgage in January, which they did. So let's go on to, building fund. Now, I learned a lot about the mortgage from the training. This whole DSR, debt service ratio, it was a new concept for me. You can see I'm still struggling to know what the initials mean. Every month in the vestry meeting, Tira, as the treasurer, tells us what our debt service ratio is. We have to have it over 1.25. If we don't, we're in some trouble with the bank. So it's very important. We're very fortunate to have a mortgage. When we got the mortgage, maybe 3 years ago now, almost 3 years ago, We were in a pitiful position. We didn't have a track record as a church, and so we were out looking for a mortgage. Interest rates were higher then, but we were able to, with the help of the committee that was managing our finances and transition to the building, was able to get us a mortgage for $2 million. And it's a 10-year mortgage. We're paying as much as we can every month, but it's kind of, I think it's a balloon payment at the end. So being able to perhaps achieve that goal may not be as realistic as we would think. So the Finance Committee and the vestry have discussed from time to time, at a point in time, we will probably want to refinance the mortgage. We should be in a better position the next time we go to finance the mortgage, because first off, our principal amount will be considerably lower. I'll just make up a number, 1.3 million, maybe 1.2, who knows. So we won't have to finance $2 million. We have a great track record. We pay our bills on time. We've never missed a mortgage payment. You know how terrifying that is in your house if you ever face that. And my heart goes out to anybody that's on furlough right now, because when I was in the government, that was always my biggest fear, that I wouldn't be able to pay my mortgage. So we haven't had that problem. Banks are leery of us as a church in any case, because if we were to default, it's not an easy property to dispose of. It's not something that people are looking to buy. So it was quite an accomplishment for Tira and the others that she worked with to be able to get us the mortgage. So the 25%, this is the part that really knocked me down, and I had trouble understanding and later accepting it, but it is what it is. So if we have an operating budget of $400,000, we have to keep $100,000 back to show the bank that we're financially solvent and we can cover ourselves. Of course, I would prefer to use all the money for the operating fund on the operating fund, but that's not doable. However, I've come in the last year and a half to really see this as a blessing in disguise, because right now we have 80-some thousand held back as a result of this requirement, and the year before it was something similar, and we're able to move that money that we're being asked to hold back to the building fund in January and continue to pay down the principal, which every time we pay down the principal, then the ratio of interest to principal payments increases in our favor. So we're constantly increasing the amount we're paying on principal on a monthly basis as well. So I said I like to think of that as an emergency fund, but it really isn't, as much as I like to say that to myself. I already mentioned we moved $144,000 over. I think we were a little less than the 10%. I think that we asked the Finance Committee to add to it from the savings that are in the building fund so that we could get to the 10%. So overall, I would just say this. There's really good news here. We have a solid track record with the bank. We are at a much better risk. We have been able to prove ourselves financially. And when God's timing is correct, and I don't know when that will be, I think the vestry and the Finance Committee will be very interested in trying to find some way that we could refinance the mortgage. So those are the main things I wanted to share with you today. So Scott, could you collect the questions? And I appreciate all of you listening. I appreciate those who might be watching on live stream, and I appreciate those who might watch the recording. And I'll just mention again, if you're watching the recording and you have a question, please contact iachurch.org and with your question, and we will try to get an answer to you. We only have one. Oh, no, two. Okay, I think you know what this one is.
So the question is, would you rather have pledge put in operating or building or divided, and if divided, what percentage to each? So that's a personal decision to make. God needs to be involved in your decision making. I can give you information like, we need to pay the principal down. But if everybody gives their money to the building fund, then we have no way to operate. Or I can say, but we need to hire new people. So if everybody gives their money to the operating fund, yeah, we'll have new people, but we won't be able to pay the mortgage. So it's a scale thing. Right now, everybody seems to understand. I don't know how you've made your decisions, but they've heard from God, or God is driving us, because what we're doing is making it happen. We are covering our mortgage payment. I can't tell, my dilemma is I can't say, well, if 10 of you give this much money, then 15 of you can give this much money. I can't do that. You're all giving in a way that is making it happen. So if you get into conversations with people that will tell you to move everything to ops or everything to building, I would really pray hard on that one and understand that we have two very important functions going on. This is God's house, and He made this happen, and now we have to protect it by paying the mortgage. On the other hand, this is God's house, and we need to do everything that we can to grow His people, grow the church. So I'm sorry, I can't tell you to give $1,000 a month, $500 and $500. I can't. But God will tell you. Any other questions? I hope this has been helpful. I've enjoyed having an opportunity to speak to you all, and if you have questions that come up anytime, I can be reached at office at IA Church, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you.